Please remember, we have left nothing to chance. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
Set during Christmas, check. Badass antagonist, check. Brilliant action pieces, check. Original story, witty quips, relatable protagonist, overwhelming odds, maximum risk, and villains dying hardly, check. Hey guys, Merry Christmas, it's Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the best Christmas movie of all time, and quite possibly the greatest action picture ever made, Die Hard, the 1988 John McTiernan blockbuster that launched the careers of Bruce Willis and the late Alan Rickman. The film features New York cop John McClane, who flies over to Los Angeles on Christmas Eve to spend the holidays with his estranged wife Holly and 2 kids. After heading to his wife's work Christmas party at the Nakatomi building, McClane's life is turned upside down as international terrorists take over Nakatomi and hold everyone hostage, including Holly, forcing the off-duty cop to take matters into his own hands. From the exterior, it may seem as though this is just another cheesy 80s action flick, but there is so much more to Die Hard than the action, one-liners and thrilling pace. Unlike the typical blockbusters of the 80s and 90s that featured an unstoppable protagonist that had to overcome tremendous odds to save the day, Die Hard introduces us to a vulnerable protagonist who was attempting to reconnect with his wife, adding a level of heart and risk which made John McClane's adventure all the more thrilling. Produced by Lawrence Gordon and Joel Silver, the film is based on Roderick Thorpe's 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever, the sequel to his earlier work The Detective, which had been adapted into the 1968 film of the same name starring Frank Sinatra. When the film went into pre-production, the studio was even contractually obligated to offer the lead role to Sinatra, who then in his early 70s turned down the project. The script was then drastically changed to have no connection to the detective, and numerous actors were then sought for the role of John McClane, including Clint Eastwood, Burt Reynolds, Sylvester Stallone, and Harrison Ford, who all turned it down, some due to conflicting schedules, while others were concerned that the script was yet to be finalized.
And we're a minute short.
Great, now the whole world knows. Mr. Thermopolis,
And do you know
Mr.
why
Ehrlich,
we're a
I'm
minute
very
short?
Karen, get my
Because you
agent on
talk
the
too
phone,
fast.
please. Not
You
because
slow
I'm
down
talking
once
fast,
in a while.
because you're
Maybe we could
talking
have a
when
show
I'm
that lasts
talking.
an hour. That's it, I've had
That's it. If the
producers
producers want to
back
welcome
on
the viewers back,
they
let
can
them do it
themselves.
themselves.
Now, at this time, Willis was mostly known for his comedic role as David Addison on Moonlighting, and had only one feature film under his belt in the form of the 1987 rom-com Blind Date, so the studio was understandably concerned that he might not work as an action star. This really shows in the comparison of marketing campaigns that were done before the film's release and those seen after it was a box office success. As Willis was a relatively unrecognizable actor at that time, the initial posters for the film prior to its release simply had the Nakatomi building on fire, and this was ultimately changed to have the building to the left and half of Bruce's face on the right to ensure the film's action was emphasized. But as the film began performing really well at the box office and people began quoting the infamous Yippee-ki-yay, Willis became an instant action star, and the new posters reflected this, with Willis's whole upper body now taking up most of the space. Die Hard was also Alan Rickman's first feature film role, and the actor was cast after Joel Silver saw his performance as Vicomte de Valmont in the Broadway run of Dangerous Liaisons.
I think every actor has got the right to fail and be dismal in something as much as they have the opportunity to be good, or should have the opportunity to be good if the circumstances surround them. You can sound like an actor, you can make a line, but you can't make it ring unless it's informed by all sorts of background. Due to the Nakatomi Corporation's legacy of greed around the globe, they are about to be taught a lesson in the real use of power. You will be witnesses.
Many alterations were made to the script in pre-production under the direction of McTiernan, like the changing of the villains from extremists to thieves, which he believed was more suitable for a summer blockbuster, and much of McClane's character background was changed after Bruce Willis's cast. Both he and McTiernan agreed that John was not a perfect character, and was actually a man who was upset and didn't like himself very much, but was doing the best he could in a bad situation, an important revision that made his character more relatable to audiences.
I really wanted to do a lot of my own stunts because I think that always lends a lot of production value to the the picture, and it was a lot of fun.
Both the internal and external scenes of the Nakatomi building were shot at Fox Plaza, the corporate headquarters of 20th Century Fox. At the time of filming, the building was still under construction, and all of the scenes featuring McClane exploring unfinished rooms were real floors and sections of the plaza that were in the process of being built.
You want to know the secret to surviving air travel? After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and your socks. Then you walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes.
The film opens with John McClane arriving in LA to attempt a Christmas reunion and reconciliation with his estranged wife Holly, who was attending a party thrown by her employer, the Nakatomi Corporation. Picked up at the airport by Argyle, a limo driver hired by the company to bring him to the party, we learn a few things about John from his conversation with the fast and witty driver, like that he loved his wife and kids, but also that he's a bit stubborn, as he'd expected Holly to give up her career. After arriving at the building and seeing that his wife had listed her maiden name in the automated directory, John makes his way to the 30th floor where a lavish Christmas party is underway. Both John and Holly then head to a corporate room and briefly reconnect, but soon have an argument as John brings up the fact that she'd begun to use her maiden name while they were attempting to work out the kinks in their relationship. This is the only scene they both get together until the very end, but it perfectly encapsulates their struggle, as it's clear that they deeply cared for one another, but both were as stubborn as each other and were equally unwilling to meet each other halfway.
Right, no matter what the consequences, no matter what it did to our marriage,
It
you had
didn't
to
do
take
anything
this
to our marriage
opportunity.
except maybe change your idea of what our marriage
I
should
think
be.
you have a clue as to what my idea of
I
our
know
marriage should be,
exactly what your idea of our marriage should be.
Holly is soon called back to the festivities, and while John continues to get ready, the party is disrupted by the arrival of a German terrorist named Hans Gruber. Gruber and his heavily armed team then seize the tower and secure those inside as hostages, except for McClane, who slips away, and Argyle, who gets trapped in the garage. Tagachi is then removed from the party and taken to another room, where Hans reveals that he was actually using the hostage situation as a cover to steal $640 million in bearer bonds stored in the building's vault. But when the CEO refuses to hand over the combination, Gruber executes Tagachi on the spot and orders his men to manually break in. After witnessing the heinous crime and now fearful for his wife's safety, McClane attempts to alert the local police by setting off a fire alarm, leading to his discovery by one of Gruber's men named Tony. McClane is able to kill Tony and take his gun and radio, which he uses to contact the LAPD from the roof, who don't take him seriously at first and initially believe his call to be a prank. As Sergeant Al Powell is sent in to investigate the Nakatomi Plaza, Gruber sends Heinrich and Marco to stop McClane, who manages to kill them both. Finding nothing unusual, the officer prepares to leave, but McClane drops Marco's corpse onto his patrol car to gain his attention, which leads one of the men to shoot at the vehicle, hoping to disable it. Luckily, Powell, who reverses the car to safety, is able to summon the full might of the LAPD, who then lay siege to the building.
Let them fumble about outside and stay calm. This is simply the beginning.
I thought I told all of you I want radio silence until further...
I'm very sorry, Hans. I didn't get that message.
Although the authorities respond much sooner than he'd expected thanks to McClane's interference, the police are explained as being a necessary and unwitting part of Gruber's plan, and we see him contacting them with a list of difficult demands, such as the release of various terrorists that he had no connection with, only to stall for time. An armoured SWAT car is then sent to storm the entrance to the building, but is disabled by the organised crew, who fire anti-tank missiles that stopped it before it could reach the bottom floor, prompting McClane to step into action once again and think on his feet, which he does by sending an office chair wired with C4 and a computer down the elevator shaft, which explodes, killing 2 more of Gruber's men. I think it's important to note that McClane wanted nothing more than to just relax, sit back and let the LAPD do their work, but his unwillingness to allow others to get hurt due to his inaction is what pushes him to keep going. As the media begins to catch on to the events occurring at the Nakatomi building, the operation is interrupted by the FBI, who arrive and take over. While the remainder of Gruber's men attempt to find McClane and the detonators he had taken from them, one of the hostages, Harry Ellis, betrays McClane's identity to Gruber, thinking that it would get him on the bank robber's good side, but he is eventually shot by Hans after McClane refused to give himself up. McClane continues to keep moving through the building and bumps into Gruber, who tries to pass himself off as an escaped hostage, and seemingly succeeds, even getting John to hand him a gun. However, his sinister motives and identity are ultimately revealed when he turns the weapon on McClane, who in turn informs him that he had given him an unloaded gun. Gruber's men then suddenly arrive, forcing McClane to drop the detonators and flee. It's also here that the FBI play their final card by shutting off the building's power and prepping for a helicopter raid onto the roof. However, Gruber had planned for the FBI's predictability, and their actions opened the final electromagnetic lock on the vault, giving him access to the bonds. Suspicious of Gruber's presence near the roof, McClane finds out that Hans had used the recovered detonators to rig the helipad with explosives. After the FBI informs Gruber that his demands had been met, Gruber's men then force the hostages to the roof to be killed by the explosions, so that the men could escape from the garage in the confusion. John is able to get the hostages back inside safely, but is shot at by the FBI, who mistake him for one of the culprits. The helipad then explodes, destroying the helicopter above, as John narrowly makes his escape by jumping off the side of the building. After discovering that Holly was actually married to John McClane from a news report that put their family in jeopardy, Gruber takes her as a hostage with the aim of using her to stop John. McClane, now down to his last 2 bullets, is able to lull Gruber into a trap, strapping the pistol to his back and using it to kill the remaining henchman and wound Gruber, who falls out of the building through a window. Gruber manages to hang on to Holly's wristwatch and threatens to pull her down with him, but John is able to unstrap her watch in time, letting Gruber fall to his demise in one of the most memorable deaths in film. Alan Rickman's reaction in this is brilliant, and for the scene, the actor was dropped over 70 feet on a green screen set. The shot used in the final cut was the first take, where Rickman was dropped sooner than he'd been told he would be, leading to the genuine look of shock and fear in his face.
I hope that's not a hostage.
Die Hard is one of the few action movies that still has me clinging to my seat, as with each rewatch I'm made more and more aware of John McClane's mortality. Though the siege ends up going his way, it's not because he's invincible or perfect, but because of his will to survive, along with his ingenuity and a sprinkle of luck. I mean, by the end of the movie, he barely makes it out alive, and the experience takes a huge toll on McClane, who has the crap beaten out of him, is shot at by both the antagonist and the FBI, and is even forced to jump off the building to avoid death. As the narrative unfolds, he is so battered and bruised and loses so much blood that by the end of the film, he is barely standing, and he's only being pushed forward by sheer will, determination, and that arrogance that his wife both loves and hates about him.
God, that man looks really pissed.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
This, I believe, is a major element missing in action films of the past 2 decades, which give us near-perfect characters without many, if any, flaws, and asks us to care about them as they predictably defeat their foes. Sure, it's popcorn entertainment, but action movies of late have become too focused on the spectacle and not what makes the protagonist worth caring about. I mean, after all, we're not perfect, and just like John McClane, we have our flaws and are merely doing the best we can in life with the cards we're dealt. This is also something that can be seen in the Die Hard series of films, which as they've progressed have traded this vulnerability for action spectacle. And it's for this reason that I believe that the first Die Hard is one of the best, if not the best, action film of all time.
You're amazing. You figured this all out already. You're very perceptive.
Well, that's all for today, folks. Big thanks to all of you guys who requested we explore Die Hard. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content. And if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Merry Christmas and thanks for stopping by.
Mr. Mystery Guest. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Unless you want to open the front door for me.
No, I'm afraid not.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.